know what she said, she might just change your life.
We are in studio with a criminal lawyer, Richard Aitken, because we want to ask this question. You're out at a party. You know that you can't drink that night because you've had, I don't know, 2-3 glasses of wine. Maybe you're a tiny little bit of a thing. Or maybe you're a big guy and you've had, I don't know, 6 or 7 beers. You've been there for a while. You wake up in the morning. Maybe you stay over. You wake up in the morning, you assume you're okay. Not the case, Richard.
Not the case at all. And actually, I feel really bad for the clients of mine who more or less get it right. They decide, had too much, I'll stay over. Lots of ride programs are set up first thing in the morning. People are on the way to church, on their way home, 9 o'clock in the morning, they blow 100 and get charged.
Wow.
So I think part of the problem is when people apply to get their driver's license, they really should have to learn about the science of drinking and driving. Typically, and I'll talk about women in a second, but for a 150-pound man, every one beer, which is 12 ounce, 5%, in other words, a typical Export or Blue or whatever, is 35 milligrams going in. Same for a typical glass of wine, which is 5% content and 12% alcohol, or 1.5 ounces of liquor at 40 proof, all standard drinks. So for a 150-pound man, having one of those, 35 going in. So what you have to do is multiply simply by the number of drinks. So 3 drinks is 105, obviously. 6 drinks is 210. And then you subtract the number of hours. But what people don't realize is they think 1 drink an hour. Well, that works only if you're really big, or other unique circumstances. For the typical man, it's 2 hours, 1 drink. It takes 2 hours to burn a drink off, not an hour. So in other words, it works for the first 3 hours because the calculation really is 35 going in, and you subtract, say, 17 and a half. But the problem is you're gaining 17 and a half an hour. So after about 4 hours, it catches up to you, and you get into a very dangerous zone. Women have a disadvantage. I mean, curves are great from a guy's standpoint on a woman, but the problem is for women, that's fat. Fat holds the alcohol more, and there's a 10% disadvantage irrespective of weight. So for how much you can drink, the main factor is your body weight. The second factor is if you're female, there's a 10% disadvantage apart from that. So let's say you're a 130-pound woman, which I think is probably more or less average for women. Every standard drink going in is about 45, not 35.
So a glass of wine. So you go to a party, you get there at 8 o'clock. You have a glass of wine. When would you be, well, you're not going to blow 0.08, are you?
That's right. If you just, but keep in mind, though, some parties, you're into the super-duper wine glasses that aren't 5 ounces, and maybe 8 or 10. That's
okay, so let's say it's a 10-ounce glass. When would you be safe to leave? 1 glass of wine at 8 o'clock at night.
At 10 ounces of wine?
Let's say 8 ounces of wine, and you're 130 pounds.
All right, so I would say that basically you had that 1 drink, you'll be in the warn range. Okay, so you're not going to be over 80, but you're probably going to lose your license for 3 days.
Wow. What? Let's back up here. I have to blow over 80.
The warn's 50, though.
Warren's 50. So, but let's say I'm at the party till 10 or 11 o'clock. Okay. Will I burn some off? Yeah,
you'll be burning off about 17 milligrams an hour. In other words, about half a 5-ounce drink an hour.
So, when would I be safe? If I had an 8-ounce glass of wine at 8 o'clock at night, when would I be safe to leave?
Okay, well, safe is a tricky question. If you're asking me at what point you'll be at 0, I would say you're going to be at 0 in probably about 4 hours or so.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind, you're only going to get charged 80 milligrams, so you have to factor that in. But still, even if you're pulled over in a ride program and you're at 50, and you show a caution or a warn on the device they have, the roadside, you're going to lose your license for 3 days.
Wow.
So it's important to factor it in. So a couple of rules of thumb I would have, and keeping in mind that most of your audience, I gather, are women, is that women, especially petite women, like a woman who's 100 pounds, I mean, she's got to be careful having anything more than 1 drink, because it's going to be a problem simply on the functional body weight.
Okay, so now let's go further, because really what you're talking about is people just assume that whatever. Okay, so we've talked about the first 4 or 5 hours of the party.
Right.
Let's talk about the next morning. Stay over. 10 o'clock. You've had breakfast.
You've
You
done the
figure
right
you're
things,
good.
yeah.
You're good to go. They've given you your keys back, and you're good to go.
You're good to go if you only had 3 or 4 drinks. But say you're a guy, and that's a calculation I'm used to because most of my clients are men, is that if you're a man and you have 10 beers, and they're all standard beers, so we're not talking pints, we're talking bottles, 12%, regular beer, 5% alcohol, it's going to take you basically 20 hours to burn off all the alcohol.
Wow, that's a long time.
Wow.
And yet, I you know what? I know of someone in the social circle who's been through this, who'd already been through the whole DUI thing, and the car is rigged up with a thing you have to blow into before the car will go.
Sure, the ignition interlock device.
That okay? I didn't know what it's called.
Yeah.
I'm very technical. I call it the thing you blow into to be able to drive your car. That's my technical understanding. But this happened. Had a few drinks, went to bed. Got up to go to work in the morning. Blow. Nope. And then the car locks up.
That's right, and those devices, they're set very, very low. I think it's about, instead of 80 milligrams, I think they set it at 10 or 20. It's extremely low.
Because you're not
so it
supposed to
doesn't
have
take very
anything.
much.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other thing about those devices, they're not super accurate in the sense there's other things that'll set it off apart from alcohol you drink. Sometimes things like windshield wiper fluid, grapefruit juice. In other words, things that are close frequency to alcohol.
Really?
They can't really tell much of the difference between
Would
them.
something like a cough syrup or anything like that?
You'd
because of
have to have a lot of it.
alcohol?
But there is
I just
alcohol in
wondered.
cough syrup,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not something I'm in danger of having a lot of.
The
Cough
other
syrup.
question I have, though, is I've not had any experience with any. When I've been pulled over to ride check, I'm usually on the way home from work, so nothing going on there. But you mentioned the warn. When you get a warning, you can lose your license for 3 days. When that happens, although you've not been charged with a DUI offense or anything, does that signal on your insurance? Does it affect you in any way other than the inconvenience of losing your license for 3 days?
It'll show up in your abstract. Now, it's not going to affect you the same way as the impaired driving conviction will if the insurance company finds out about it, and they don't always do, but you got to figure it's going to go up because the insurance company is going to assess you on the basis of risk. And the fact that you've had even a warrant and it shows in your abstract, objectively, that's a risk.
So, Richard, give us a plan here. We want to be good corporate citizens. We don't want to run anybody over. We don't want to drink and drive when we're in the least bit impaired. Maybe we have a drink, have a small glass of wine with dinner. We're out for dinner, and we drive home, and that's okay.
I think I need to talk about something else, though. It's what I focused on so far is what the concentration of alcohol is in your body. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're 16 years old and never had alcohol before. You have one beer. You can't possibly be over 80 milligrams. It's not enough. But since your body has had no experience with alcohol, you're going to be blottoed. You'll be walking funny, talking funny. You won't be able to drive at all. I mean, you'll be impaired. So in that example, not guilty of over 80 because maybe you're maybe 50 milligrams, but guilty of impaired because the alcohol has affected you in your ability to drive. And in terms of impairment by alcohol, the test is impairment, even slight impairment, proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now the flip side of that is, say a man who's 60 years old, who's been drinking hard for 40 years, blows 100 milligrams. Probably he's sober. He'll be perfectly functional. He can drive fine. But he's over 80. So they're guilty of over 80 because 100 is more than 80, not guilty of impaired. You have to factor in people at different tolerances. And also if you're tired or if you just played squash and you have a beer maybe or you're tired, it doesn't take as much alcohol. Now, if you have scientists with the Center of Forensic Sciences in Toronto, which is basically the government agency dealing with this issue, they will say that even at 50 milligrams, your ability to operate a motor vehicle is impaired by alcohol. Toxicologists employed by defense lawyers say it's 100. But certainly in that range, you run the risk of even if you're under 80 milligrams, you may still be impaired by alcohol. So in terms of the question you posed, I would say basically, unless you're super petite and if you're not tired, you could probably safely have couple standard drinks over the course of a couple of hours and not have to worry a whole lot. But once you get past that, you really have to think about it. Also, these days, there's devices out there that are commercially available, like portable breathalyzers. They're reasonably accurate. I mean, you have to calibrate them, but it gives you an idea. But there's an urban myth you can have a beer an hour. It only works for the first 3 hours, and only if you're a guy, and only if you're 150 pounds plus. Otherwise, it catches up to you. I got married 10 years ago, and I had quite the stag. I mean, I made sure I didn't drive for 2 days. I mean, it was, I could do the math.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, for people that are taking in all this information, trying to hold on to it, you have that information, a whole lot more as well in your book. Could you tell us a bit about the book before we run out of time? Yeah.
Sure, that's right. So the various lawyers in my office did a book all about DUI law. We wrote it ourselves. If you go to our website, www.fightthecharges.com, so there's a T in fight and a T in the, you can get it online. It's free. We'll send you an ebook. And it's 100, 150 pages telling you the law, telling you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, the penalties, basically how the machine works, how the courts work, and so on. It's some good general advice. But what I really think is that people in their 20s, they've learned a lesson. It's their parents who are far more likely to be my clients. The young people have been educated, education works, and people simply need to know that the 1 beer an hour myth doesn't work.
Yeah. And so when in doubt, if you don't want to sit down and do all the calculations or sit there with a little thing that you pull out of your purse or sit down and figure it all out, when in doubt, just take a cab.
Exactly.
That's right.
Don't plan on driving and drinking. My children don't. They never have. There's no question. They don't want to figure it out because they say, well, I might get there and want to have another one. They never drink and drive.
Take car out of the equation. Yeah.
The car is taken out of the equation, and all their friends are the same. It's just not even an issue.
We have our office party this afternoon, and basically, arrange cabs for everyone. You also have to think of, if you're the host, you have potential liability.
Oh yeah.
If you're serving the booze, or you're buying the booze if you're the boss and you're buying the booze at a party, you got to be careful. You need to make sure that your employees get home safely.
Oh, we've already chatted with. We've had guests in to tell us how to unobnoxiously tell your guests they cannot drive home.
Well, great information, and we'll make sure everybody stays safe and happy and well this Christmas season. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Richard Aitken, and the book is 17 Secrets to Helping You Survive and Win Your DUI Charge. It's fightthecharges.com. Check it out. And stay with us. Still more to come. This is What She Said on SiriusXM Channel 167 Canada Talks.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.